Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to build a UI template or an admin theme. We're going to build it from scratch. The first half of the video is just going to be the basics, getting the admin menu in there, getting a logo going, and obviously the page content, and syncing that all up together. And the second half, we're going to do a little bit more advanced stuff. We're going to style it, we're going to play with some of the options, and add a few more of the more advanced blocks within UiPress. All right, so let's get started. Right now we're in just standard WordPress admin. We've come down into settings and we're in UI builder. We don't have any templates yet. So let's just go ahead and click new template. All right, so here we go. We've got our blank canvas. We've got all our blocks over here on the right. Since about 2 weeks ago in UiPress, we now have a few things that can help you get started pretty quick. If you come over to patterns in the top right, we've got some basic layouts, but we also have the admin boilerplate, and that's just a blank layout with the kind of standard stuff you'd expect in most admin themes. You're going to have a menu and toolbar and an area for your page content. Let's just drag that in to have a look at it. Yeah, here we go. So that would be your logo up here, your menu, toolbar area. You'll see in the layers panel here, everything's named as you'd expect. So yeah, that makes it really easy to get going. For the purpose of this video, we're just going to build all this manually. If you're not interested in that, if you already know how to do it, just follow the sections in the video description and jump to the relevant part. All right, so let's just clear out these layers. Cool, so now we've got a blank canvas. Now the first thing you want to do when building your admin theme is add a container that takes up this whole space, that can kind of control your whole layout. You can add background colors that way and control global options. So let's drag in a container from the blocks list. You'll see it's already taken up the full space. That's really useful. One thing I would recommend, and you'll see me doing during this video, is naming all of your blocks or your layers. When you're working with bigger templates, this is going to really help you in the layers panel, just identify what's what and keep things pretty streamlined. All right, so we've got this app container. There's one thing I wanted to do to this before we add anything else, and that's just set a max height on it. So if we go over to the wrap settings of the app of the container block, come down to container dimensions, and just put a max height of 100%. Most admin areas and stuff built within UiPress, the main scrolling is going to be within the page content. You don't want the actual app to overflow because, well, I mean you can, but you'll run into some complications with the menu and whatever you build on the left side. So this is the easiest way of doing it. Just set a max height on the app container. Cool, so the next thing we need is an area for our toolbar over here on the left and an area for the page content. So super simple, let's just drag in 2 containers, or if you like, you can just duplicate straight from here. So you see we've got one here and one on the right. Let's just name these right away. So we're gonna have, let's call it Sidebar. And body. Cool, so these are automatically kind of just filling the space. What we want to do now is for the sidebar, set a more realistic width because we don't want it taking up half the screen. So let's just change this 100% width down to, let's say 300 pixels. Cool, so that seems a bit more realistic. And for our height, we're going to want it to fill this space down here. So let's do 100% height, and let's do a max height of the screen view height. That's going to help you later if you've got a menu that's going to overflow within this. You don't want this sidebar container stretching out past your window viewpoint. but we'll go into that in more detail in the advanced section of this video. Cool, so that's about the right height. Let's do the same thing for the app body. Let's just give that 100% height. Awesome. So now we've got our two areas where we can start dropping blocks and building out our template. So let's come back into the sidebar panel here and let's add another container for the top. Now what we want to add in this container is a logo with a link back to the admin. It's a pretty standard area. We could do that just by adding an image block or a button block, but we may in future want to have things running across here that isn't just an image or a logo. So we're going to use a container for that. So let's name this as logo container. And let's use the button block and drag one of those in. Cool. So let's change the name of this to app logo. And now we're going to want to style this. Currently it looks like a button, but we're actually going to set a background image and use it just as a logo and a link back to the admin. So let's go into style. So first go into settings. This will make it easier. Go into settings and remove the button text and set the link. We're going to want a dynamic link and come back into admin home. And we don't need an icon or anything for this. Now let's go back into style. And the next thing we want to do is remove the padding. Okay, now you'll see the buttons almost disappeared. And let's add a background image. If you've already set within the UiPress settings your app logo, then you can use a dynamic. Otherwise, just go into the library or upload whatever logo you want. So let's just use that as the site logo. Cool. Now you'll see nothing is showing right here. Not to worry, it's just because we haven't set a dimensions for the logo. So let's just switch the height to pixels and let's go with 30 pixels height and 30 width. And now you can see we've got a logo. Come into preview mode. All right, there's our little logo. And once we've built out a page content area, that will link back to the admin home. So super simple. So the next thing we want to add is an admin menu. So either search or scroll down to admin menu block. And let's just add that below the logo container. Oh. Here we go. Let's come out of preview mode. So straight away, you're going to see this isn't what we want. We want everything to be laid out vertically and not in a row. Very easy to fix. If we come back into our main sidebar box and just come into the settings, these settings exist on all containers. Super easy to lay out the content. So for this, we want it to be laid out in a column. So you use content direction, click column. Very easy. Okay, so now we've got the right layout, but you'll see the logo container is now stretching to fill up all the available space. Containers are defaulted to stretch like this. That's expected behavior, but it's not what we want in this scenario. So the easiest way to fix that, just come into the logo container here that we made earlier, come into its wrap settings, and you'll see under grow or shrink, it's already got grow on. Just take that off and it's not going to take up all the available space anymore. Cool, so now we've got our logo and our menu. With this menu, we want it to stretch and take up all the space available horizontally. So there's a couple of ways to do that, but the easiest way would just be under the wrap setting of the admin menu, just give it a width of 100%, and then come into style in the Style tab and do the same thing. And there we go. Now, we may have a functioning menu and a logo, but everything's getting a bit cramped. I think it's probably time we have a look at adding some spacing. If we come into our sidebar, then what we can do, because UiPress mostly relies on Flexbox, we can add a few different options with the layout to space things evenly. So if we come into the settings of the sidebar, you're going to have these two options at the bottom here, column gap and row gap. Because we've arranged it in a column, we actually want row gap, and we want to set the spacing between every block that comes into this sidebar. So change this over to pixels. Let's try 30 gap and see what we think. Yeah, that looks about right. Now the next thing you might want to do is add a little bit of padding around this sidebar. It's not going to look good if your menu is right to the edge. Well, maybe that's what you want, but for the purpose of this video, we don't. So let's come into the style of the sidebar, and we can use presets for the padding, or alternatively, you can set a custom padding or set a custom padding per side. Totally up to you. For this video, we're going to go with medium padding, and let's just preview that here. All right, so we're looking pretty good so far. We've got an admin logo and we've got the admin menu. Now, we've got 2 out of the 3 main basics now for the template. The next thing we want to do is add the page content. The page content is going to show you, as the title suggests, whatever is on the current page. UiPress uses like a frame to show the admin content within the admin theme. It's also how it manages to load everything up dynamically without page refreshes, and allows you to create really easy, beautiful layouts within this builder. So let's just search in the block list for page content. Here's the block we want, and let's drag that right into the app body. Let's come out of preview. Okay, cool. So we've got our dashboard, obviously way too small. So we just need to change some settings on this page content here. Again, a couple of ways of doing this. You can use the stretch options, but the simplest way will just be setting the width to 100%, height to 100%, and then do the same for the wrap of the block. And there we have it. So now we've got our admin menu. Everything's working nicely. We've got our admin home, and that'll take us back to the dashboard. Awesome. Now, one other key aspect of having an admin theme would be to have a logout button for your users. In the next half of this video, we're going to go more into the custom options you can do, and we'll add a lot more detail to this. For the sake of this part, we're just going to add a simple logout button down here in the bottom left. So let's come back to our blocks list. We're just going to use the button block again, and we're going to drop this into our sidebar container. Cool, so we've got a new button here. Let's give that a name. And let's come in to the settings of this logout button. So let's give it some text. We can just say logout, and let's go for an icon. Oops, excuse me. And we've got a logout icon right here. We can change the position of that icon if you want. And the last thing we need to do to this button is set the logout link. So click this little link icon here, come into the dynamic, and we've got the logout link right there. And for the link mode, most links within UiPress, you probably want to leave on dynamic. That means it will just load automatically within the frame. There'll be no page refreshes. If you have it on default, the whole page will refresh just like a normal WordPress admin. Or there's the new tab, which is self-explanatory, but it will open the link in the new tab. For the logout button, the reason you want it on default is because we're going to log out of the admin, right? So if you do that dynamically within this frame, you'll end up with your logged out view and the login screen within this frame, but you'll still have the admin menu here. So it's quite confusing. So you want to leave that on default. It's going to refresh the whole page and will behave like a normal logout button within WordPress. Cool. Now the last thing I want to do here before we preview this template live is make this menu take up all of the space available within this admin bar, or the toolbar, sorry. Oh, sidebar, sorry. And stretch this logout button down to the bottom, and so the admin menu can take up all the space. Again, very simple. Let's come into the admin menu here and come into its wrap. And then we'll use the grow or shrink options, and we can grow like that. And there we go. And automatically it's taken up all the space. We've still got the 30 pixel spacing between each item from the row gap. And yeah, it's done exactly what we wanted it to do. Cool. So now we've got all the basic building blocks for an admin theme, a pretty functioning template. The next thing we want to do is set this live, and let's have a look at it. So if we go into the builder settings over to the top right here, let's give it a name of our first template, whatever you want to call it. Template type is UI template. That's perfect. That's what we want. We're going to want to apply our role. So let's just do administrator. This pops up whenever something is going to apply to your currently logged in role. It's there just to remind you that if you were, for example, creating more of a limited template for a lesser priority role, like an editor, for example, you may be locking certain things out of the menu or restricting some features. So this is here just to remind you that, you know, this template is going to load for you. Make sure you want it to load for you and not for a different role. In this case, we do want it to load for us, so we can go ahead and ignore that. And the last thing we need to do is set it to an active template. We're going to go ahead and press save up here. And let's just navigate to a new page and see what happens. Awesome. So there's our brand new template. Everything's looking pretty great, and everything seems to be working just as we expected. Awesome. So we can come back to the UI builder, and if at any time you want to go back and make changes to this template, you can. If you want to turn it off, very simple. You can either come to the settings option here, flick the active switch and save. You can remove your role, save, or we can use the active switch up here and save. Once you turn off a template, even if you navigate to a new page, it's still going to carry on loading. This is just down to the way the frames work. But to get the latest version of an updated template, or if you've turned one off, all you have to do is do a page refresh, and here we go. I'm back to the default WordPress admin. Cool, so that's the first part of making a very simple but functioning template with UiPress. In the next half, we're now going to go into more in-depth details, and we're going to have a look at creating a template Similar to the Ghost CMS template that we have over here, we won't be making the dashboard, but we'll be making a dark style, adding a dark mode switch. We'll add a little user dropdown like this and a global search, and we'll add a view site button too. And we'll also go into some of the more complex blocks within UiPress. Yeah, so if you want to stick around for that, we're about to get started. If not, thanks for watching the first half, and we'll see you in the next one. All right, so let's get into it. Let's just have a look at the Ghost CMS admin again. So straight away, we've got a bit more padding going on around the toolbar. So let's just increase the padding on our own toolbar. So come into the sidebar here and come into the style, content area, and let's just increase the padding to large. Let's just preview that. And for the menu block defaults into this dynamic style where the submenu will replace the main menu, and then to go back to the main menu, just click the back menu there. For this video, let's create something a little similar to what you would have had in UiPress version 2, which is the submenus come down below here. So bring up the admin menu settings, and for the menu style, it's on dynamic. Let's just put it on inline. And now we're going to have our submenus just below. So sticking with the menu for a moment, it's working, but what we want to do is add a little bit of style to this, because there's currently nothing to show what is active within the top levels, the bottom. So we can easily change that within the styles. So within the admin menu block, come over here to style. Let's just minimize this top level one. And here you're going to get options for kind of every subcomponent within the admin menu block. So we've got icons, we've got the submenu items, headers active, hover, all that sort of stuff. So we'll keep it simple, but what we want to do is add a style to the active top level and the sub level. So here we've got menu headers active, and anything we add to this is going to be the active style for each top level. So let's just make it bold. You see straight away the media went bold there. That's our active area. And let's just make the text color the emphasis color here. Perfect. And let's come down into the submenu active item. And let's do the same thing. Bold. And the emphasis color. Cool. Now in the other, in the Ghost CMS template that we're looking to replicate here, the icons are quite a bit bigger, and we also have a different submenu indicator. So we'll stick in the styles area of the admin menu here to replicate that. We'll come down to icons, and if we change the font size, it should increase the icon size. Cool, so now we've got slightly larger icons. And for this submenu indicator, we can change that to a plus. That's done in the admin menu settings area. And we'll just come down to the submenu icon here and let's change that to a plus symbol. All right, that's looking pretty cool. I feel like these icons are a little bit too close to the text, so we're just going to add a little margin to that. Come back into the admin menu, style and icons. And for the margin, just click the custom option down here, split it per side, and we just want to add a little bit to the right. Might be too much. Let's do 5 pixels and have a look at that. All right, so we're getting somewhere. Now what you might notice is the submenu is neither here nor there. It's not aligned on the left and it's not aligned with the text. I prefer it when the text is perfectly in line with the top level items, so let's go ahead and change that. Come back into admin menu, style. Here we've got the submenu wrap. And let's give it a custom margin to the left. Let's try 10. Oh, we might need a bit more. 30 is too much. And that was way too much. Cool. And I also want to give it a little bit of spacing to the bottom too. Awesome. So that's looking pretty good. Now the other thing the GoCMS admin area had was a search icon in the top right here to the logo. So let's click into this container here, and I'm not sure what they use to search in terms of if it's a modal or an off canvas, but for the sake of this video, we're going to use an off canvas. So let's just go slide up panel, and let's just drag that just below the app logo. Awesome. So click on the options of this, go to the settings. Let's remove the text and give it an icon. Use the search icon here. And what we want to do now is remove the background. So come into style, the trigger style, and just give it an opaque background. And we're going to make the padding extra small. And we're also going to want to give this a little background color on hover. So if we come into the hover styles here, we can use one of the predefined variables for its background on hover. That might be hard to see in the video, but that's now going slightly gray to the background. And we also want a slightly curved background border to that. So come down into the border area and just give it a radius of whatever you want for that. And the last thing we need to do for the styling of this is increase the search style, search text size. We can again use presets. I think large should be enough. Cool. Now, not to be too particular, but while these are laid out correctly, this is not horizontally centered. So to change that, just come into the settings of the logo container we made in the first part of the video, and just come down into align content and center. And now that is perfectly centered horizontally with the logo. Cool, so that's our off canvas selector. When we bring that up, it's going to bring in a slide out panel. Now, for the width of this slide out panel, it's going to default to 30% of the screen. Depending on your preference, that might be fine, or you may also want to change that. So within the slide out panel, come over to style, and we've got the panel styles here. So we can change the width to whatever we want. For the purpose of this video, let's go 400 pixels. And I'm also going to give it a max width of 90%. I'm going to do that because on mobile, we may want to not have this take up the whole screen. If you want it to take up the whole screen, just leave it blank or set it to 100%. Personally, I prefer when there's a little bit of space to the side of it, so you can click on that even on mobile and it will close. Cool, so now we've got our panel area for our search. We want to add the search lock. Let's come out of preview mode here and bring up the panel again. Awesome. So the search content block is pretty good to go from the start. The only thing we need to do is just make it take up the whole space of the container. So we'll just set a width of 100% for its wrap, and for the style, we'll just do the same thing. And now if we test this, all right, there's a post, hello world. Amazing. So just like that, we've got an off-canvas panel with a search area. I'm just going to go ahead and save this template. Let's make it active and just have a little preview, make sure everything's looking good. Awesome. So we've got our menu now with our styled top level and sub-level items. That's all working perfectly, and we've got our off canvas. Awesome. So let's go back into the builder. Cool, so within the Ghost CMS that we're looking at, there's a few options down in the bottom here. I've got some sort of settings icon, we've got a dark mode, and we've got a user, what looks like a user area drop down. Right now we've only got a logout button. If we look at that in our layers list, that's not actually what we want right now. We're going to need another container here to lay out our bottom bar. So the easiest way of doing that actually would be to delete this logout button, and let's just duplicate our logo container and drag that down below. Let's rename this to user options container. Cool, so now we've got an area at the bottom of our sidebar where we can drop new options. I don't know exactly how the Ghost CMS, what happens when you click down on the bottom for the logo there, but for the purpose of this video, we're going to use a little drop down container, and we'll add a logout button in there. Cool. So I've deleted the items out of our container for the bottom where the user options are going. Let's find a drop down and slot that in there. The drop down works very similar to the off canvas in terms of styling, so we can set a logo or we can style the button separately, and it's going to open up a little drop down where we can add content. Let's rename this to user drop down. All right, let's go ahead and style this button. I think for this, we're going to add our user profile image as the main style of the button. So let's remove the text for the trigger text. We don't need an icon or anything like that. We do want to set the position to the top left. And let's come into style, trigger styles, and let's put, we'll give it no padding. We're going to add a 30 pixel width and height. And we're going to add a background image. We can use dynamic for this if you want to use the user profile image. So let's just select that. All right, and in the preview theme we were looking at, I believe it's circular, so let's add a border radius of 50%. Let's just have a look at that. Cool, so now we've got a little drop down area. We just need to drop in some content. I'm not going to go too crazy in this video. We'll just do something simple. Otherwise we'll be here all day adding all the blocks under the sun. So let's just add a logout button. Oops, excuse me. And let's see what happens. Cool, so there's our little button. We just need to make that an actual logout button. Let's come into its settings, change the text to logout, and give it an icon. And set it to default for the link mode and set the link to logout. And let's have a look again. Cool, there's our little logout button. You can obviously add whatever you want into this area. You can add more containers and style the layout. There's really no end to what you can add here and do. UiPress really does allow you to create completely custom templates for your WordPress based projects, and you can really achieve whatever you need to do within the admin area with things like this. Cool. So the next thing we wanted to drop down in the user options area, I believe, was a little dark mode switch. So we've got one pre-made here. Awesome. So we've got our dark mode switch right there, and we've got our user options. Obviously we want the dark mode switch to align to the right and this to stay on the left. So we come into our container for the user options. All we need to do is set the content direction to row, and we just need to justify the content by space between. And just like that, the dark mode switch is now perfectly aligned to the right, and that will stay, the logo will stay to the left. And now whenever you want to switch to dark mode, you've got it right there. Cool, so let's just have a look at it in dark mode right now. Everything is automatically updated, looks great. The one thing we do need to add is the menu icon, not the menu icon, the app logo, sorry. We just need to add an option for when it's in dark mode. So if we come into the app logo settings and into style here, now you notice we've got this logo here, but we actually want to add an alternate logo for when it's in dark mode. And UiPress has all this built in. So at the top of the style tab, we can see we've got light mode and dark mode. This just separates different options. If you want to set different things for within dark mode, if you're working with that, you can do that here. So if we switch this over, we'll see we've got no background image for dark mode. So we can just come into dynamic and I'll use my dark mode logo. Perfect. And now, all being well, when we switch, yes, everything will automatically change per the mode you were in. All right, so let's just save our template. Cool, so one of the other things the Go CMS template had that we should add, it had a very nice little view home link permanently at the top of the menu here. There's a couple of ways you could do this. You could add an item using the menu builder to the actual admin menu itself, or you can just add another button at the top of our sidebar layout here, and that's what we're going to do. So let's come back to the block list and add a button just above the admin menu. Let's call this view home, and let's come into its settings and let's say view site. Let's give it an icon, maybe a little home icon. let's just have a look at that. Okay, let's add a link. We can come into dynamic and view site. Cool. So now when we click on this this button, sorry, it's going to come up with our homepage, which this is just a dummy install of WordPress, so it might not make a lot of sense, but that's the homepage of our site. And then we can just come back into the admin. Cool, so now we've got our view site button. I just want to change up the style of this a little bit, just so it fits better into our admin menu layout. So let's just click on here and go to settings. Let's bring up its wrap. And you can do whatever you want here, of course, style it however you want. But for this, I want it to take up the whole space and stretch. So we're going to give it a width of 100% in the wrap, and the actual button here will give a width of 100% too. Now let's just have a look at that. Yeah, it's kind of okay, but let's see what it looks like with the icon to the right. Okay, cool. I kind of like that. Let's stick with that for now. Perfect. So we've got our search, we've got our view home, we've got our function in menu, we've got our dark switch, and we've got our little user drop-down area. Cool, so now I want to look at some of the options within the page content block. So let's bring this up. So we've got a bunch of options within this block. One thing I did want to hide for this template, because it's quite a minimalist template, is the screen options and the help tab. If you're quite used to WordPress, you'll probably find yourself never using the help tab. The screen options come in handy sometimes, depends what you're doing. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to hide them. So there's two options for that. We can hide the screen options with that one and hide the tab there. That's not going to update instantly. All you need to do is just click a new page and you'll see they're now not visible at the top there. So that's super simple to do. And some of the other options I don't want to use in this template, but I'll just talk through them quickly anyway. The theme is the slightly modified admin theme you see running through all of the page content here. If you prefer the WordPress theme, then you can disable that and things will look a little bit more like WordPress then. If you want to stick with the other theme, then just leave that option alone. We also have an inbuilt full screen option within UiPress. You'll actually see it here in the top right. So any page you're on, you can bring everything up full screen or minify it down like that. If that's not what you want, then you can disable that. You can also disable that option if it's getting in the way of certain things and still use full screen with a separate block. We have a full screen toggle block here, and if you don't want to have the top right icon but still want to have the ability to open page content in full screen, then you can drag that block in somewhere and use that instead. And one of the other really cool options within the page content block is the login redirect. Setting that to anything will mean that will be the first page you get shown when you log into your WordPress, or if you just access your WordPress admin via your site and then wp-admin with no direct link, then it will also redirect to that instead of the default WordPress dashboard. Cool, so one other thing I wanted to add to this template now, which something a lot of people will be used to having, is a toolbar at the top here with a few different options. Again, very easily added. we're going to be adding content to our app body. So let's start off with another container and just drag that in under the app body. And if we come out of preview mode, you'll see we've got a similar problem from the start of the video where it's aligning things row when what we actually want is for things to be aligned in a column. So we just come to app body and we'll align content as a column. That's done pretty much everything we wanted. One thing to notice is because we set the page content to have a width of 100%, a height of 100%, sorry, we may just want to remove that and do that with Flexbox because otherwise it may stretch the layout. So all we're going to do is have it grow and then come into this toolbar container that we added here and remove grow, and then your layout is going to stay perfectly within the app body. So let's just rename this to toolbar container, and let's just jump in and give it a little bit of padding straight away. Awesome. So if you're missing your WordPress toolbar that's normally at the top here, we have a block for that. So we can just add in the toolbar block. And there we go. Now there's not a lot in my toolbar right now. There's only 3 options. Because of the way the toolbar block works, sometimes it won't always bring up the icons. So you may just have to come into the settings of the toolbar, and we can see our 3 options that are currently there right now. So we can give them names if you want, and you'll see that show up there. We can change that to comments, and we'll change that to new, and then we can give them icons too. Let's do a comment, and for update, something like that should do it. And let's just preview that. Cool, so that doesn't look too bad. I did want to center this vertically. So let's just bring up the container settings and then just align content center. And there we go. So now we've got our WordPress toolbar. Cool, so now we've got our WordPress toolbar, we've got our sidebar, and we've got our page content. Let's have a little preview of this template before we go any further. Let's just refresh the page. Awesome. All right, everything's looking great. Let's come back into the builder. Now, one thing a lot of people like within their admin areas, we've built a very streamlined, minified admin, but some people like contrast between their sidebar and their main page content. Of course, within UiPress, there's many different ways to do that, but one of the easiest ways is actually by forcing, if you want it dark, is by forcing the dark mode within a kind of an isolated area like this. So you'll still be able to use the dark switch for all of this area, but within this, instead of changing all the text colors to light colors and stuff like that, we can actually just add one single class to this area and it will switch the whole thing. The first thing you want to do though, before we do that, is actually add a background color. So let's bring up the sidebar. Let's come into the style and the content area, and let's give it a background color. Let's use one of the pre-built defaults, the inbuilt default, sorry. Let's go with the color base. Awesome. Now, to make this whole area dark, just come into the advanced area and do custom classes, and we can just type in UIP dark mode. All right, so there we go. Everything's looking pretty sweet in its dark mode. The one thing you may have to change is the logo. That's just to do with the way the dark mode works for background images, but we can just change that in the style here and replace the default logo with a dark mode one. Cool, so let's have a preview of that. Awesome, and then we've still got the dark mode switch here, but this will remain with a dark background. Of course, I've shown you just with an inbuilt black style. You can obviously have any dark color you want there if you are wanting a dark sidebar. The actual styles of the theme itself, because those can be changed within UiPress too. It all works off CSS variables. So you can change the colors that we're using through the theme, the border radiuses, that sort of stuff. The amount of options available to you will depend whether you're using just the free version or the pro too. But you do get a lot, if not most of the options available in the free. So if we come into the settings of the template and just drop down into theme styles here, we'll see all the different colors that run through the UiPress theme, and also, unless you've added your own custom colors, then they run through the blocks as well. So we can easily change any of these. For example, if I didn't want to use this purple anymore, you can see these are actually custom set already. So I can just clear these out to be the default and they'll update. But of course, if you want to set your own to match your brand, you can do whatever you want. You can have these options for light and dark mode too. Yeah, and then this allows you to really tailor this theme to match the UI that you've built. And we also have the different spacing and sizing options. These will adjust all of the layouts and the spaces within the theme. And the final option in is just the font option. You can update the global font to whatever you want. You can also do this on a block level, but if you just want one font running through the whole admin, then that is the easiest way to do it. All right, so we've got a pretty solid desktop template. Not much else we need to do to it here. The next thing, and pretty much the last thing we need to think about now, is optimizing this for mobile. Most of UiPress's blocks will deal with the screen width changes, that sort of stuff on their own. But for the actual template, we are going to have to add, we are going to have to make a few little changes. Within the builder itself, we do have these little preview buttons here, so we can see tablet and mobile. Obviously on mobile now, we're not going to want this sidebar. We probably want to have something that's going to fly out. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. So usually we would have a little menu icon up here and perhaps a logo, and we'll get rid of this sidebar too for the mobile template. So let's start with the flyout for the mobile. So we're going to use another slide out panel for this. So let's just grab one of those. And we're going to put it in the toolbar container. So we'll just add it there. Let's modify it. We'll probably just have it as an icon. So let's just find a little menu icon here. Let's get rid of the text. And as we've done with some of the other slide outs, let's just modify the button there and remove the background color. And let's give it an extra small padding, not a margin, and increase the font size to 11. Let's just have a look at that. Yeah, that should be good. That right. So now we're going to get another flyout panel like this. I actually want this to be on the left side. It's going to make more sense if it's coming from the left icon. So we can just go into the settings of the flyout panel and put the panel on the left, which is easy enough. And we'll come back out of this. Now, one thing you might notice is this icon is very close to the toolbar. You can change that in a few ways. Obviously, it's personal preference. I usually find the easiest way is using the gap options of the container. Excuse me. Let's just do maybe 10 pixels should be enough. Awesome. So there's just one thing I'm going to do to the flyout panel before I put the menu in it. By default, this panel will have padding on it. We want to remove that right now. So we're in the flyout here. Let's come over to the style, and there's a panel styles just here. And let's remove that padding. Now there's a couple of ways you can do this in terms of putting a new menu into this flyout. You can save this as a pattern. That's easily done by the contextual click and just save as a pattern. That way you'll be able to drag it in from your patterns list and reuse it. Any changes you make, it's going to automatically update. Or you can just duplicate it and paste it in. So for this video, I'm just going to copy it, and then we'll bring up the flyout panel, and we should just be able to paste in there. Yeah, perfect. Cool, so now we have this mobile menu that flies out, and we've got our desktop one. Now you don't want these both showing at the same time. So for this mobile menu container here, if we just come into its settings, every single block has these responsive options, so you can hide it for a specific device. For this one, we're going to want it to show on tablet and mobile, so we'll just hide it for desktop. And then for the sidebar, we want it on desktop, but not on mobile and tablet, so we can hide those there. And now when we toggle through the different displays, you'll see we've got this mobile option, and then you come back into desktop and it's gone. Cool. And then I just want to add a logo up here because we've got no logo now, because obviously it's in the sidebar, which is hidden on tablet. Cool, so we can just copy the logo from here and paste it into the container. There's a couple of things here. This is obviously taking the light logo from that, so we can change that up. Just come into the style of the element, and we'll go dynamic and change the logo back to the dark one. And then we want it to sit between the menu and the toolbar. I'm pretty sure this just has an align on it, which we need to change. Yes, there we go. So we've got all of that nicely spaced out, and the last thing we want to do for the logo is just hide that for desktop too. Cool, so now when we go into our mobile previews, we've got the new menu, and we have the home button or the logo. Awesome, so let's just try that out in a live environment. Just refresh our page here. And we come into a mobile preview. Awesome, so you'd obviously want to change the width of this menu because what we copied from the original was, I think it was 300 pixels. You'd probably want to change that to be more like 90% or 100% depending on your preference. So let's just go into the builder and update that. change the sidebar here. Actually, in this situation, we probably want to change the width of the actual flyout panel, which is here. So let's say 400 pixels, but let's give it a max width of 90 so it doesn't hide the whole screen on mobile. And then for our admin sidebar here, we can just update this to take on 100% of the sidebar. Do the same in the style. 100% that was already set. Awesome. So let's have a preview of that. Perfect. You can obviously change what's in this flyout panel for your mobile if you want things to be a little bit different. You can move perhaps the search button into the menu here, toolbar, sorry, that would then always be accessible for your mobile users. It's totally up to you. All right, so there you have it. We've got a pretty awesome looking template now. I hope you've got a better understanding of how you can build these UI templates from scratch, and it's not so daunting. Obviously, this is one way of doing it. A much easier way of starting, if you don't want to build completely from scratch, is by using the library within the builder. You can import any of these pre-made layouts straight in and work from those as a starting point. Totally up to you how you do it. The builder is very flexible and allows you to create pretty much any admin theme or template you want for your projects. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. We're going to be doing the next video in a very similar style, but we're actually going to create an admin page and not an admin theme. So yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned a couple of things, and we'll see you in the next one.